Hello class, for my vivid share, I'm going to be sharing my experience with my first ever Code Blue. Code Blue is when you find a patient with no pulse, no vital signs, and you start CPR, and yeah, that's what I consider to be a Code Blue. So it was a normal day. I was on my normal hall. I work long-term care, so I do work with elderly people. I had a patient. She was very, very, very confused. Well, she was confused. She could get combative. She was a lot to deal with. She was a fall risk. She didn't always take her medication. She had a lot of heart medication, a lot of blood pressure medication, and there was just days where she wouldn't take anything, and then there was days that she had really bad AFib. So it was a mess. So that day I got on shift, and I want to say it was my first time ever having this patient. I worked on the hall. I floated between halls, so I would work on a hall right next to that hall, so I always knew what was going on. But I think it was my first time or my second time having her. So it was the morning time, so I went in, I gave her roommate her medication, and then right after I gave her medication. She took her medication crushed. I checked her blood pressure. Her blood pressure was high. It was like 146/68. Her pulse was high as well, with like 78. And I took it manually and through the cuff, and all her vital signs were normal. She looked at me, she said something, she spoke Assyrian, so she was telling me stuff in Assyrian. I didn't understand her. I told her durmana, which is medicine, and she took it. And then she continued to talk, so I said, okay. So I left the room, I continued with my med pass, and 30 minutes later, no, like an hour later, one of my CNAs came out of the room, and she said, hey, have you checked in 511? And I thought she was talking about her roommate, and I had just gone in there with her roommate like 30 minutes ago. So I was like, yeah, I went in there 30 minutes ago. She just took her medicine. What did I say? She had called me in there to like show me a picture of her daughter or something. I was like, yeah, I just went in there, and my CNA said, and she was fine. And I was like, yeah, she was okay. And then she just like stared at me, and I said, why? What are you talking about? Are you talking about A bed or B bed? And she said, I'm talking about A bed. And I was like, oh, well, I went in there to give her medicine, and when I passed by, she was awake. Why? And then she looked at me, and she said, well, she's dead. Just with the straightest face, not even like fazed by it, almost like wanting to laugh. It was just so weird. I thought she was joking. So I was like, what do you mean she's dead? She's like, she's dead. Like, she's gone. She's in the sky now. So I was like, what? Keep in mind, I am a new nurse. I have only been a nurse for 1 year. I have not ever had a code. I have never had to deal with the situation. I have just like no experience with it. So I like rushed into the room. I try to find a pulse. My first instinct is literally to wake this woman up. I don't want her to be coding right now. I don't know what to do. Well, I know what to do, but I just like, I don't know why. I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna wake her up. Like, it's gonna be okay. My CNA is exaggerating. She's alive. She's alive. She's alive. And I told myself that like 20 times while like trying to wake this woman up. I was doing the sternum rub. I was even trying to open her eyes up. I was feeling her hands. I was just trying to sit her up. I was doing everything, and she was gone. So that wasn't like a long time that I was trying to wake her up. It was literally probably a minute of like 5 seconds, taking pulse. Everything was like 5 minutes. So I immediately called a Code Blue. I told her, hey, go outside, call a Code Blue. And I started compressions. I started CPR right away. So she ran, and she called a Code Blue. So in our facility, when you call Code Blue, it calls over the overhead, and everybody usually rushes over you. Like other nurses will rush to help you. However, the ward clerk was new. She's the one that would call the Code Blue, so she did not call it. So it was only me, and I was doing compressions, and then the RN came, and she took over. She helped me. But I always tell people, it's so weird. I don't want to say traumatized me, because I don't think it did, but my thoughts in that moment afterwards, I felt like told me a lot about myself and things I need to work on, because as I'm doing compressions on this poor innocent lady, I could clearly remember myself thinking like, oh my god, her family is gonna kill me. Oh my god, I feel so bad for her daughter. I feel so bad for her son-in-law. Like, they're gonna come into this, they don't even know this is gonna happen. I just felt so terrible for them that I feel like it was wrong of me to not even think about like, I'm breaking this woman's ribs right now. Like, I felt her ribs break beneath my palms, which was, I think that's a feeling you don't forget. You don't forget the way that feels. Just the fact that I thought like, oh, her family, how her family was going to feel towards me, that doesn't even matter at that point. Somebody's going to lose their loved ones. And I did feel really bad for her daughter having to lose her loved one. It being my first code though, it was extreme. It was a lot. It was an experience that I will hold on to. I have not had another code ever since then, thank God, and I hope I don't. I know I'm obviously, being an RN, you're gonna get a lot more codes than that, but as of now, I just hope that I don't get one, not as an LVN. But yeah, it was a lot. It was an emotional roller coaster. I cried. I felt sad. I felt like how do I say it? I felt like, it's weird because it's obviously it's a code blue, you have to do it, but I almost felt wrong for touching a dead body and breaking a woman's bones who I in my heart knew was not going to wake up. It did not matter how much CPR I did on this woman, she was not going to wake up. And for me, it was just hard to know that I messed with a dead body. I had nightmares about it afterwards. I dreamt that she like came and dragged me because of it. So it was. And then my CNA also was like, oh, just leave her alone, she's dead, she's not gonna come back. And it's like, I know, but it's protocol and I have to do it. So for me, that was really hard to know that I knew she was not gonna come back because her hands were already cold. So I know she had been passed for at least the 30 minutes that I had gone in there. I don't know if she passed right after I walked out. Even that, it was so much. Like, my other CNAs had gone in there to, once obviously everything died out, and I asked people, and my other CNAs had gone in there right after I left her with her roommate 30 minutes before she passed. Well, we don't know when she passed, but 30 minutes before I was called back in there. They picked up her tray and she was actually fighting with the CNA and like telling her stuff. So I knew she was alive 30 minutes prior, but I didn't know how long it was between her passing and us going back in the room. But that one was definitely hard. Okay, thank you, bye. A topic that interests me that's a little bit darker is mass shootings. The reason that this topic interests me is because I want to get a better understanding of why the rate of mass shooting is being like doubled and tripled these upcoming years. I don't understand what has changed. Obviously, social media is more prevalent. I think social media bullying is more prevalent. So whereas before you were maybe able to go home and get away from the bullying, now it follows you to your house because social media is so prevalent, especially in younger kids in this generation. However, is that truly where mass shootings are increasing? I mean, it could be a possibility, but to what level are we gonna blame social media until we start really looking at mental health in a whole and seeing what's going on? Are parents more distant? Are they less understanding? Are they understanding and it is just social media? It's a lot of factors that you can really look into, because a lot of people say it's like video games like Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, those shooting games, but those have been around forever and they weren't, I mean, there was mass shootings but not like this. So it's really just, to me, interesting to learn why this increase happened. And gun laws is the same thing. It's these laws, they've been intact for years and years and years, and it wasn't a problem before. So it's just kind of getting to the bottom of what it is, because I know I know a lot of conspiracy theorists believe, you know, different things, but I want to know like the mental standpoint of where this is coming from. If maybe we do need to start looking at social media as something that shouldn't be as prevalent, which is crazy to say in this time and age since it's taking over everything, but it might be because of social media. Because like I said before, you could get away from the bullying. At least you're home, you're with your parents, you're with your family, and now you're never really alone. For this topic, the ideal audience, I would say, would be, it kind of, that question is a little tricky to me, because I would say college students, because they're younger and they grew up in this generation, as did I. I'm only 22, so we were, 18 to 24. However, I do know that a lot of those people are anti-gun law. Well, yeah, anti-guns. And I think a lot of those people would only see it through their one view, their thing that was pushed by media, like get stricter gun laws. And I don't think that stricter gun laws really play a part, because if somebody wants to do a mass shooting, they're going to do it with strict gun laws or not. I think to really dive in deep and to really have an audience that wants to look at mass shootings as a whole and not just as a gun problem, it would probably be 25 to 35 for my ideal audience. It just kind of depends what route, you want to take for that conversation and that talk, because like I said, I feel like younger people do tend to focus on the gun ban, and that's their main goal. And it's understandable. I understand that they're saying, we need to screen mental health more deeply, and I agree to that. But if you want to talk about the conversation in a whole, I do think 25 to 35, because they would be, maybe some of them do believe in stricter gun laws, which would be great, or whatever, or gun bans or whatever the case is. But I do feel like they would talk about it as a whole. The only thing I think about those ages is that social media was around, it just wasn't as prevalent as it is now, so they might not understand the impact or the heaviness that it takes on you, like to the toll social media takes on you. So I think that it's just hard, because these two generations have completely different intels on what social media is and what society is becoming, really. So it's hard, pretty much. I would say 25 to 35, but with explaining the fact that social media does take a toll on people, even if you think it does not, because it does. And this age group would find the topic interesting, because they might be looking at it, especially like 35-year-olds, 40-year-olds, they might be looking at it like, well, mass shootings was not this big of a thing when I was in school. I mean, it happened every once in a while, but it didn't happen like this. So they might be interested in learning about it too. They might be wanting to know why it's so prevalent as well. For the younger generation, like I explained, for the 18 to 25-year-old, I think their interest would be, how do we stop it? Which is a good thing. I think that the older people would also think, how do we stop it? I think they would just be looking at it like, okay, what's different? Whereas the younger generation, I think, would just look at it as a like, okay, how do we stop it? Let's ban guns. Let's, so it just, like I said, it's a complicated one to pick an audience for, but yeah. Okay, bye. Hi class, today we're going to be talking about the significance of ethics, a TED Talk given by Michael. What I believe the main topic is how we see ethics, and how the way we see ethics varies from person to person, and our upcoming affects it, obviously. There are some things that are clear-cut bad, of course, which would be murdering, stealing, but then there's stuff that kind of falls into this blurred line, like maybe telling white lies. Some people think it's okay to tell white lies, and other people believe it's not. And it's just your take on ethics and making sure you grow from every situation you're in and every situation that might put your ethics to the test, and grow from each thing that maybe you did something that was unethical, and you can learn from it, you can grow from it as a person. Self-improvement, pretty much. What I found most interesting and most helpful about this talk is, what I found most helpful was self-awareness. He really, for some reason, just listening to the talk, it just made me feel like, okay, you need to be self-aware to grow, to become better, to learn from your mistakes, to learn from your from the times you are unethical. And unethical goes into every situation in life. I mean, when you don't respond to somebody who's giving you hate, or when you decide to tell that white lie, it's, that's when you are making your ethical decisions. What I found most interesting is when he did bring up the point that, we do all think of ethics in a different way. We're raised differently. We're raised different households, different parents, different cultures, different races. It's so different that we would see ethics in a completely different way. Maybe to me, it's not okay to tell somebody that, hey, you look sick, or, oh, you didn't do your makeup, you look a mess. And I would never say that, but maybe somebody else would. And to them, it's just honesty. Like, oh, hey, you might want to clean up next time. So it's just, those lines are so blurred for each and every person because of the way we grew up. And on his professional quality, I would say is a 10. He's very well groomed. He spoke very clearly. He didn't say every 5 seconds like I am right now. He was very clear in what he was saying. It seemed like he had a lot of experiences in ethics. He used a lot of different examples of his students, and stuff like that. So I would rate him a 10. Okay, thank you. Bye.